Hey everyone, and welcome to another Factorio Friday Facts. I'm Exterminator, and thanks for joining me for this one. This is number 379, Abstract Wiring. This is written by BossKid, StrangePan, and Clonin. And this one is a lot of like technical behind-the-scenes stuff, and I'm not gonna read this whole thing to you. It would probably not make for a great video. So I've just created a very broad summary. Like, most of this is behind-the-scenes stuff that is cool. Like, I've read through the whole thing, but I think we can probably just summarize most of it, to be perfectly honest. If you do want to see like every detail, you can definitely check out the Friday Facts yourself, but a lot of it's in regards to power poles, wires, and then some abstract objects and things for like remote interaction, which is pretty cool. Like, there's definitely some hidden gems in here that we're going to cover. So we'll start out. Basically, they just discussed the historical implementation of copper wire connections between electric poles. So the connections were essentially static vectors pointing from one electric pole to another, right? And they have like an example here where electric poles in 1.0.0, copper wires between the electric poles were not possible between electric pole ghosts. So like the ghosts wouldn't connect to actual poles with the wires. I mean, once they're built, they would, but they couldn't just have the ghosts connect, because when it would be destroyed, all copper wire to other electric poles had to be disconnected, because, you know, they can't pretend that the entity hidden in the entity ghost shell is still connected to the network. So they had to be disconnected, basically. So now there is special ghost connections. To enable wire connections and blueprints, one-sided connections were added from ghosts to real entities. So this means that ghosts will then like have a one-way connection to actual entities, and then once it's placed, it'll obviously connect as well. However, this resulted in some complexities and special cases. There were some challenges that, you know, they faced along the way, like updating connections when poles were destroyed or revived, and handling various logic situations. You know, with this stuff, there's always a lot more work that goes into it than it might seem on the outside. But, you know, they kind of go through it here. When an electric pole is destroyed, you need to check if the ghost is not pointing to it and update its connection to the containing new ghost instead. When an electric pole is revived, you also need to update the corresponding neighboring ghosts. When blueprints are being made, the wires for blueprints need to be collected from entities and ghosts, so on and so forth. So they also have things like power switches, and such. So they did some refactoring and simplification. Basically, recognizing the need for a major overhaul, they made a decision to break the rule of not pointing into dead entities inside ghosts. So that was how it was originally, is they would not point to like dead entities or a ghost, but they broke that rule, and now we'll do it. So the simplification made it clear that the infrastructure built to shield the original logic was very overcomplicated. Right? So they kind of went to a unified wire connector class, where these new changes allowed the team to unify connection logic for different elements like real poles, ghosts, power switches, and circuit wires. Right, so it just kind of unified everything together, made it work more simply, less overcomplicated, you know, less maybe like edge cases of things not working or working. So it just kind of, like I said, smooth over, simplified the whole thing. And it just made everything more straightforward and manageable. Now we go into, so that's like this whole section that we just scrolled through, basically summarized, is what it is. Again, there's more details. If you want to read them, you definitely can. But then there are some visual improvements as well. They are perhaps minor, but I do really like the devs' attention to detail on this type of thing. And you can see here, like this is really nice. So, you know, when you drag power poles, it automatically connects at the longest wire length. But now, if you have like red and green wires on them, it also does those, which is super, super nice. Now, you could do those with an actual blueprint if you were like blueprinting over and over again, but it did not include those when you would just click and drag. And having it do that is just so nice, man. That's like a great quality of life feature. So that's, you know, one of the hidden gems in here that's just gonna make things a bit easier. So now we go into like visual improvements. Again, mostly going to summarize this. Essentially, you know, they realize that there's a lot of sag in the wires here. You can see this is like what it currently is, And then this is what it is in 2.0. Things are just more taut, more straight, cleaner looking. Personally, I don't really mind the sag, but I do like their attention to detail, and this is why Factorio is so good, because they have such an attention to detail and fix even the smallest little things that a lot of people may not even think they need to be fixed. I mean, I don't think this looks worse at all. It's different, and again, I didn't really mind this, but this is not in any way worse, which is obviously good. So they also changed shadows, where they basically made the shadow sag towards the sun, creating a more natural and consistent visual effect. So this is how it is currently in 1.1, and then this is what it's like in 2.0. Like, it's not a huge difference, but I think it does maybe make a bit more sense with how shadows work. I mean, I never really pay that close of attention to shadows, to be honest with you, but this, I think, does actually look a bit more natural. Just, like, instinctively, when I look at this looks more natural. So, this is, again, kind of the same thing. More taut wires. I mean, this, with the combinators, this does actually, to me, look a lot better. So this is how it is currently. Again, doesn't look awful to me, but this just, there's just something satisfying about this, that it's just, well, with all the wires nice and tight and clean, it just is a good feeling, I think. And then again, so here, this is just, it's okay, but then this, I think, just looks a bit better. Again, just the small improvements are really nice. Now, the abstract items, I think, is my favorite part of this whole Friday Facts, because it just overall simplifies things, make things less cluttered and kind of tedious and stuff. And I experience this a lot personally with some of this stuff. So basically, they went in and transformed what they consider abstract objects, like blueprints, red and green wires, discharge defense remote, artillery remote, Spidertron remote, essentially into, like, toolbar, I can't think of the word, toolbar, like, keys or tools, essentially, where they're not an actual item. They're just like an imaginary thing you get for free, basically. So they can be spawned for free, and eliminating the need for crafting. So essentially, because you would have to, like, create a blueprint, you'd then have, like, you'd be holding a blueprint, or, like, a lot of it, or, a really good example would be, like, artillery remotes and any other remotes where you have to actually have the physical thing in your inventory. But now it's just going to be like a toolbar thing, as you can see here, that, well, first off, it can now be up to 12 slots wide, which is fantastic, and you can just see, like, okay, boom. So we had blueprints and stuff on here before, but now we have copper wire, red and green, artillery remote, discharge defense remote, and the Spidertron remote, which is super nice. So one question I do have with this is how it's going to work with the Spidertron remotes, because you can have more than one Spidertron remote, obviously, because if you have more than one Spidertron, you might want them all connected to a different remote. I wonder if this is going to be like you click on it and it creates like a drop-down list of them to select or something. I'm not really sure, since you won't be physically having the remotes in your inventory. I'm a little curious how this one's going to work with controlling, different Spidertrons with different remotes. I don't recall seeing that in here. If I did miss it, let me know. I do apologize if I did miss that, but they just kind of give some examples. So, they say, like, you cannot red wire something from the map, but you could take a blueprint of it, wire it locally, then place the blueprint back over the top, and the wires would magically change. Yeah, so this was a thing, and this kind of always was just annoying to me. Like, you would get the wires for free, essentially, and it would just place them when you use a blueprint, but if you didn't use a blueprint, you would have to actually handcraft the wires and then place them. And I think doing it this way is just fantastic. This is how I kind of would have liked it done all along. And then, they just go on to say basically the same thing with all these other items. And again, I don't see anything with mention of the Spidertron remotes using it with different Spidertrons, but I maybe missed that. They say these changes also improve the ability to do things remotely, and remote interactions will be the focus of the next Friday Fact. So I'm curious, I wonder maybe in the next Friday Facts they will mention something like with the remotes. So we kind of already have an idea for the first time now since these started. We have an idea of what the next one's going to be, which is remote interactions. Again, perhaps not as flashy as elevated rails, but this is going to be really good, I think, because, doing things remotely, is kind of the whole thing of like it's a big part of Factorio in my opinion, having automation, you know, not having to physically run everywhere and do stuff. You know, you can have your Spidertron build things. So the more convenient and less tedious remote interactions you can have, the better in my opinion. So I think this is going to be really interesting to read about next Friday Facts and see what else they added, because I'm sure this maybe wasn't everything. See what else they changed and improved that you could do remotely. Like, one last thing to touch on, obviously was not mentioned here, maybe it will be in the next one. One thing on my bucket list would be to have you be able to open trains from the map view. Now I know you can go into your train menu and you can find a train and then click on it and then go like in a map view there, or click on it and edit the schedule from there. But what I do a lot is, you know, I go into map view and then go to an area to like investigate a problem or something, and if I see that a train is maybe sitting somewhere when it shouldn't be, when it should be leaving, I then have to exit the map, go into my train menu, find that specific train, open it up, when it would be awesome, in my opinion, if I could just, you know, when I'm zoomed in the map view on that train, I could just click the train in map view and it would open the train GUI for that specific train, and then I could edit its schedule or tell it to go somewhere. That's something I've kind of wanted for a long time. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's not possible, but that's like something pretty high on my bucket list that I would love to see. Just a nice quality of life thing, fits right into the remote interaction stuff. So I'll look forward to that. I'd be really interested, guys. Let me know down in the comments what type of things you would like to see added or improved on for remote interactions, and maybe if you have any ideas how the Spidertron remote might work, just some guesses before next Friday Facts. And I know this one was really short. I know it was a very broad summary, but, you know, again, it was pretty technical, and I think we covered the gist of it. Basically, wires look better, they work better, it's less complicated, overall improvements, and, you know, not every Friday Facts is going to be elevated rails and all new planets and stuff. Like, you know, they're going to cover other stuff, which is totally fine. There's a bunch of stuff that they're adding and improving in the game, which is always good. So if you did enjoy, a like is much appreciated. And if you're new, welcome. And feel free to subscribe to keep up with future videos. And if you have any thoughts and stuff, leave them below. Definitely. Always love reading that. You know, head over to the forums and Reddit to share your thoughts with the devs. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.